Hey friends, before I dive into this week's podcast, I want to encourage you to listen to the end because I'm going to share an exciting announcement that I think is going to bless you tremendously. So please listen to the end of this week's podcast. Welcome to the Becoming Whole podcast, where we help men, women, and families learn and live God's good, holy, and beautiful design for sexuality. I'm your host, Josh Glazer, and we're glad you're here. You ready? Let's dive in. In a recent meeting with our staff, there was a moment where we were talking about married couples, and we talk about a lot of things in our calls, but we're talking about married couples or an issue that married couples face. And one of the women on the team brought up a guideline, a kind of a path forward that they found really helpful in working with couples. And there was kind of this unanimous chorus among the women on the team. We're like, that's so great. That's fantastic. And meanwhile, the men on the team were silent. It was kind of like a very different response. And as I listened to what this specific piece was, I was like, well, actually, I don't see it that way. I'm not sure that's a great idea. It could be, but not in every situation. And so we started talking about it, and it was really a fascinating conversation because the men on the team and the women on the team saw things differently. Now, that doesn't always happen. And as we talked, I think we came more to the middle and hearing each other and seeing the benefit that each was bringing to the other, which is, I think, a great example of what God designed men and women for. It was not good that Adam was alone. It wasn't enough companionship for him. It wasn't an accurate representation of God that Adam alone would image him on the earth. We needed both Adam and Eve, both man and woman, and we need today both man and woman. And I've been meditating for years now on this idea that we as men and women bear the image of God, that there's something about us that, looking at the ancient Near East religions, it was very normal for different religions to have idols of their gods. And the idols made of wood or stone or some kind of precious metal the understanding was that even though it was just a craftsman had made this out of material, that somehow the God would abide in the image. And so people would bow down before, if they had a house idol, they'd bow down before the house idol. If there were idols in the temple, they would bow down before the idols in the temple. We even know from the book of Daniel, the time that all of the Israelites in Babylon were forced to bow down before this huge idol of the king. There's this sense of the God, his essence was in that idol. Well, we know from the Ten Commandments that we are forbidden from worshiping any other God, any idol besides the one true God. And throughout the Old Testament, we're told not to fashion an image of this God. We're not to fashion an idol. We're not to use stone or precious metal or wood to fashion something of Yahweh. But, and we might ask, well, why not? And I think the answer is in Genesis 1, because in the very beginning, God created humankind in his image and likeness. Humankind, not as an idol to be worshiped, and we'll get into that in a minute, but as an icon expressing what Yahweh is like, expressing what the one creator God of all things is like. And man and woman are the expression of that. Not man alone, not woman alone, but man and woman together are the expression of God on the earth. And so why not create an image? Because God has already created an image. He has already created his ideal representative of what he is like. And moving from there, he has actually designed us to be in union with us. So in Genesis 2, he fashions out of the dust of the earth this first human creature, Adam. And he breathes his breath and animates this dirt creature. And the scriptures say it becomes a living being. So unlike all the other idols in the ancient Near East, the God of Israel is the God, the Yahweh is the God whose icon, whose representative is actually the living creature who walks on the earth, man and woman. Hey friends, if you have something we should be talking about on the show, let us know. Send us an email at podcast@regenerationministries.org. In the meantime, please be sure to review, rate, subscribe, and share this podcast. Now back to the show. My intention is not to give a theological lesson here in this podcast, but to park for a moment on trying to get us to step back and consider with awe the beauty of male and female, the beauty of man and woman, and what it means to be man and woman, and the value of both. And I think and as I said, I've been meditating this for years, and there are times where I'm struck with this idea that men, when a woman walks into the room, we're not to idolize her, we're not to worship her, but there is a sense that if we understood her correctly, if we saw her correctly, if we had eyes to see her as she is designed by God to be, that we would want to kneel down in front of her in respect and glory because of how she embodies in this living creature, how she embodies an aspect of the one true God. And vice versa. When a man walks into the room, there ought to be some sense of that. And again, I'm not in any way suggesting, that some subservience or, men, you should, grovel at women's feet or vice versa. That's not my intention. I don't think that's God's intention. I think his intention is to elevate man and elevate woman. I think some people have put it, human beings are meant to be the crown of creation. And this is one of the reasons I'm passionate about this area of ministry and passionate about helping men and women overcome sexual sin issues, because sexual sin in many ways just contorts that. It either sexually idolizes the male or female body. It idolizes sex, which is, the human person, male and female, is designed for marital sexual union. And so the perversion of sex is a perversion of God's image, or what the human person is meant to image through their marital sexual union. And then likewise, if there's a same-sex coupling or any other kind of coupling, that also distorts the image of God in the male and female. So all of these things, and God's design for sexuality, what he's designed us for, is not just kind of like a rigid thou shalt not. It actually is meant to be this greater, bigger, more beautiful expression of God's image on the earth. So the single man who never marries is an expression of the image of God walking on the earth, an icon of God walking the earth. A single woman is an icon of God walking the earth. Man and woman together in lifelong, committed, loving marriage is meant to in another whole way express the image of God walking on the earth. Their having children is meant to express the image of God on the earth. And on we go, and we can plunge deep into that. This is what Pope John Paul II called the theology of the body, and I'm just scratching the surface of it. Well, with all of that said, I have an exciting announcement to make. For those of you who have listened to the podcast for a long time, you know that we've been through a few different iterations of what the Regeneration Podcast is, and we are going to continue to grow and develop that. But adding to our family of podcasts, this week, we are launching a podcast by the women on our team for women called Sacred by Design. And the heart of this podcast is that women would listen and grow week by week by week to understand more fully that they are through and through sacred by design. Every week, the podcast will take a deep dive into conversations about desire and intimacy and sexuality and parenting and you name it. And each podcast ends with a spiritual discipline, walking through a spiritual exercise to help you actually grow in your own sense of who God has designed you to be. And listen, I can't state this highly enough, that the women on our team are heading this up. So Andrea, who's been on our team for this last year, is hosting the podcast. And each week she'll talk to a different member of our team, Kit or Ann, Rebecca, Kyle, to dive into some of these topics. And I just have the utmost respect for each of these women. It's not just their understanding of the topics they're talking about. It's not just how they've walked with men and women who are wrestling with these topics. It's also their own humility and the journey that they take in their lives to dive deep. So the things they're talking about are not just theoretical. They're things that they are living out and living through, or have lived out and have lived through. I think it's going to bless you tremendously. So if you are a woman and you've been listening to this podcast, by all means, continue. We're not kicking you out of here, but we would strongly encourage you, take a listen to Sacred by Design. You'll find a link to it in the show notes to this podcast. It's also not just available wherever you listen to podcasts, it's also available on YouTube because we've been filming it. So you'll actually get a glimpse of the people who you're listening to, which I think helps to make it more personal. So brothers and sisters, I hope this has been encouraging to you. My dear sisters, please give a listen to Sacred by Design. I think you will be blessed. And I think it will deeply enrich your life, your spiritual journey with the Lord as you continue on your journey towards becoming whole in acknowledging, embracing, drinking deeply of God's love for you, that you would know more and more and more that you are sacred by design. Bless you. Thanks for listening in. If you find the content of this podcast helpful, make sure to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. That helps other people find the show. And if you'd like to check out more resources to help you in your journey towards becoming more whole, go to regenerationministries.org. Again, I'm Josh Glazer, and we'll see you next time.